You can run a marathon in your head at 2 in the morning. You've already launched the business, shipped the project, built the body, lived the life. Then the alarm goes off, and somehow the hardest thing in the universe becomes getting out of a warm bed. You've blamed that gap on willpower for years. What if you've been treating the wrong patient? Here's what I want you to sit with. The thing dragging you backward feels like weakness, but it behaves like a habit. And habits have a logic. They have a payoff. So before you flog yourself for being lazy one more time, ask the question nobody sells you in a course. What exactly are you getting paid every time you quit? Because you are getting paid. That's the part that stings. Every time you close the laptop instead of finishing the hard part, your body hands you a small, warm reward. Relief. The tension drops. The discomfort of not knowing whether you're good enough disappears for an afternoon. You learned that trade a long time ago, and you've been running it ever since. The technical name psychologists use is negative reinforcement. A behavior gets stronger because it removes something unpleasant. You're a master of it. You've just been calling it a character flaw. Think about what that flaw conveniently protects. If you never fully try, you never fully fail. The half-finished app, the channel with 3 videos, the training plan that died in week 2. Each one is a story you can tell yourself where the verdict is still pending. As long as you didn't go all in, the jury stays out. Comfort isn't only soft, it's strategic. It's the safest place to hide from a number you're scared to see. So why does the language matter? Why insist it's an addiction and not just a willpower dip? Because the words decide the solution. If the problem is willpower, the fix is to grit harder. And you already know how that movie ends. You white knuckle for 9 days, you crash on the 10th, and you add one more piece of evidence to the case that you're just not built for this. Calling it willpower keeps you fighting a fight you'll keep losing. Name it as comfort seeking, and the whole map redraws. Now you're a person with a reward loop that's pointed in the wrong direction, and reward loops can be rebuilt. That's a problem with leverage. That's something you can actually move. Watch how it shows up in the small stuff, because the small stuff is where you actually live. You sit down to do the deep work, the real work, the kind that decides whether your thing becomes anything. Within 90 seconds, your hand drifts toward your phone. There's a tiny ache in that moment, the friction of a brain that doesn't yet know the answer, and the phone makes it vanish. Dopamine on demand. You took a hit of relief and your brain filed it away as a win to repeat. Multiply that by 1,000 reps a week. That's the real machine running your life. Now, who actually breaks it? There's a guy I think about, a friend of a friend who wanted to be a writer for a decade and wrote almost nothing. He had every excuse you'd recognize. Then he changed one thing. He let himself write badly, on purpose, for 10 minutes a day. He tracked each day in Hone, a free habit tracker that just logs your streak, link in the description, and the only metric he watched was whether he showed up. The bar got so low, the comfort payoff had nothing to flee from. Within a year, he had a finished draft. You beat the loop by removing what it's feeding on. So let's get specific about your loop, because yours has a flavor. For some of you, the comfort is rest disguised as research. You watch the tutorial instead of building the thing. You read about cold plunges and macros and morning routines, and your brain hands you the dopamine of progress while you pay none of the cost. Learning becomes the most sophisticated form of hiding there is. It looks like ambition, it feels like movement, and you can do it for years. For others, the comfort is other people's lives. You scroll the founder who exited, the creator who blew up, the body that took someone 5 years to build, and you feel a strange mix of inspiration and ache. That ache has a function too. It lets you feel involved in greatness while risking nothing of your own. You get the emotional highlights of a life you haven't earned, on a couch for free. The cruelty is that it drains the exact energy you'd need to build the real version. And for a lot of you, it's none of those. It's the endless tinkering. You rebuild the landing page for the fourth time. You reorganize your notes app like a monk. You pick a new framework, a new niche, a new training split, right when the old one was about to demand something real from you. Each reset feels productive, and each one resets the clock back to zero risk. Starting over is the most respectable way to never finish. The comfort is the same, only the disguise changes. Here's why this compounds instead of fading. Every cheap hit recalibrates what your brain treats as normal. The relief you got from quitting last Tuesday becomes the new floor, so the same escape barely registers the next time, and you need a bigger dose to feel okay. That's why the scrolling sessions get longer, and the bar for what counts as too hard keeps dropping. You're not getting lazier as a person. You're getting tolerant, the way anyone does to anything they overuse. Left alone, the loop doesn't stay the same size. It grows. Here's the uncomfortable part, and I'm going to stay on it longer than feels nice. A better app, a colder shower, a louder morning playlist. Those are willpower tools, and we already fired willpower. The work is quieter and harder. You have to catch the moment of relief in the act and refuse to let it close the loop. What does that actually look like at your desk? You feel the friction rise. The reach for the escape begins. And instead of acting on it, you name it out loud, even just in your head. There it is, the comfort hit, right on schedule. That half second of awareness is the whole game. You can only change a reflex you can see. The naming drags it into the light, where it loses most of its grip. Then you stay, just for the next rep, the next paragraph, the next set, the next line of code that probably won't work. You teach your brain a new trade slowly, that the friction is survivable, that the discomfort passes on its own, that the escape hatch was always optional. And the dose matters here as much as the courage. Most people try to quit the comfort loop the way they'd quit anything else, all at once in a blaze of motivation, and they burn out by Thursday. The loop laughs at that. It was built one tiny rep at a time, and that's the only way it comes apart. 5 minutes of staying in the friction today, 6 tomorrow. You're not trying to become a monk by the weekend. You're shifting the floor under your own normal in the same slow direction the loop used to drag you, except now it points up. The discomfort that felt unbearable in month 1 becomes the warm-up in month 3. Now, let me give the other side its due, because there's a real objection here, and you've probably felt it. Sometimes you stop because you're genuinely exhausted. Sometimes rest is the right call, and the hustle voice screaming at you to push through is its own kind of poison. That's true. The difference lives in the timing and the feeling. Real rest comes after effort and leaves you steadier. Comfort seeking comes instead of effort and leaves you hollow and vaguely ashamed. Tell them apart by what they leave behind, and you'll stop using legitimate rest as a costume for avoidance. I won't pretend this is purely a mind game, because that lie would fail you later. Some of this is environmental. If your phone lives in your hand, and your snacks live on your desk, and your bed sits 3 feet from your work, you've built a comfort delivery system and then blamed yourself for using it. You can't out-discipline an environment engineered to make quitting easy, so you change the architecture. Phone in another room. Friction added to the easy escapes. Friction stripped from the hard right thing. You're building a world where the weak moment version of you still moves forward. That distinction is your real leverage. The whole industry wants to sell you motivation, a feeling that shows up rarely and leaves on its own schedule. You need a setup where the next small action is the path of least resistance. even on the day you feel like garbage. Design beats discipline every single time. Let's go back to that bed at 2 in the morning, the one where you live a better life in your imagination. That fantasy is the comfort loop's masterpiece, the purest hit of all, the reward of the achievement with zero of the cost. Your brain has learned it can give you the feeling of the dream for free. Why would it ever pay full price? That's the trap dressed as a vision. And it's the exact thing you can starve. Here's the reframe I want ringing in your ears. Every time you choose the harder thing in the small moment, you're paying down a debt and building credit in the same motion. You're teaching a system that's run on cheap relief for years that it can handle the real thing. The discomfort you've been fleeing is just the sensation of growth happening in real time. You've been sprinting away from the one feeling that means it's working. You don't need to become a more disciplined person. You need to starve the part of you that profits from your retreat. Catch the relief. Name the hit. Stay for one more rep. Move the snacks, move the phone, lower the bar so far the resistance has nothing to grab. Do that on the boring days, the tired days, the days no one's watching and no playlist can save you, and something quiet happens. The version of you that only ever existed at 2 in the morning starts showing up at 9 because you stopped paying yourself to disappear. The dream was never the thing keeping you up at night. The bill was. Pay it in the daylight, one cheap, ugly, ordinary rep at a time, and watch how fast the fantasy runs out of places to hide.